Good afternoon, everyone. The Indian state of Nagaland, its first snowfall in 40 years. That would encompass the green area to the east, as well as the non-migratory Giffen vulture from the Himalayas turns up in Singapore, down near the equator, parts of China's Yellow River frozen solid, and Idaho making the rounds with deep snows. Media would have you believe it's all because of CO2, but the 18th century, warmed naturally. It's a sine wave.
What are the scariest things happening in the world right now that could devastate your retirement and savings? The Iran conflict or the disruption of global oil supply in such an event? Global stock market crash? Highly possible. What are you doing to protect yourself from the potential of major economic turmoil? Many are turning to gold and silver, and Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer. Call today or request a free investment kit. The link's in the description box below. PatriotGoldGroup.com. And now, on to the video.
One of my favorite pictures from the week here, this fuel truck buried nearly to the top. I thought snow was going to be a thing of the past. Well, I guess not in Idaho. You can find this one over on Strange Sounds. Again, I've linked everything in the description box below because I think tonight the correlation of animal movements and new snow patterns in the Himalaya, especially to the eastern Himalaya, is giving us a signal that things are changing and wildlife is responding to it. Because as you know, animals are much more sensitive to magnetic movements and anomalies than we as humans are. Now, the Indian state of Nagaland, first snowfall in 40 years, considered a quote uncommon occurrence in Nagaland. Temperatures dropping right down near freezing, again unusual because it's a low Himalaya. Here's Assam right here, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, borders right there with Myanmar, otherwise known as Burma back when the British controlled it. But these are the northeast states. There's been quite a few videos because it's such an unusual event. Nagaland snows. I mean, this is record snowfall up there. They're looking at feet and feet of snow when it usually doesn't even snow at all. The corporate media will try to smooth it over and say, oh, first snow in 40 years. But look how much first snow in 40 years. That's well over 1.5 feet. And Parveen putting out the first days of the snow here. This was back just before the turn. Happy New Year 2020. And that event continued for about 9 days. Now, in a place that gets very little or no snow for an entire decade, multi-decades, and then it snows for 9 days straight, weather patterns have shifted. Now, the reason I even mention Nagaland is because these non-migratory Giffen vultures from the Himalaya have turned up in Singapore. And I thought that's really interesting because the green area, and you'll see at the far east that includes Nagaland, Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, and all the way up into Tibet. Yet these birds are not migratory. They don't generally move by the season. But what is happening? Look at this. These vultures are in downtown Singapore. They're having a heyday because the prey there is so easy to fetch at their down city center. Traffic's trying to avoid them. People are breaking for the vultures. They're so unused to seeing any kind of massive large birds like this. These things have anywhere 4.5, 5 foot wingspans. Jumping in the middle of the city center, feasting on pigeons that are used to getting handouts from humans. But just to put it in context, you see India there, and you notice where Tibet is, and Arunachal Pradesh, the northeast states, but then Singapore and Kuala Lumpur are circled in the right. So these things have moved for some reason. And animals don't generally move unless their senses are telling them to move, and the magnetic fields are out of kilter, where it's causing them to move southeast about anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 miles. So what's going on there? That is definitely an anomaly. We've seen a lot of Arctic birds also turn up in England and further south parts of Europe this year. So our magnetic field is weakening anyway. Are these animals responding to it and giving us advanced warning? Because vultures with 5 foot wingspan popping up in Singapore, if I was living in Singapore, I would go, geez, that's a sign. And the cold snap continues. It hasn't let up since that point, and I'm trying to show you the progression here. It's gotten even heavier. Now they're having massive avalanches all through India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, and it continues day after day. the images coming through with multiple feet of snow, people stranded, vehicles stranded, roads can't be plowed, and then you have the avalanches coming through. And it's hard to keep up on the Twitter feeds of how many avalanches and people stuck in these areas. It's unbelievable, into the hundreds now. The feed is so deep. It'll take an hour or more to get through there looking at all the images. Linked in the description box below as well. And over on to Xinhua, which is the Chinese media. Major parts of China's Yellow River's frozen solid. And from this image, you can't really get a good gauge on how thick the ice is, except for that small piece right in the front there. And you go, oh, it looks a few inches thick, so let's widen that out and get there. All right, so this is a flowing river. This is how thick it is. And 1/4 of China's second longest river is frozen this thick. Not normal. Usually they'll get some freezing, but not like this, not this thick. Because somebody asked me the question, well, does it freeze every year? Yes, but not nearly to the extent that it does now. So this is an anomalous year all around across our planet for freezes, fires, droughts, border-sea winds, and record rains. This is a cycle. Corporate media is trying to not panic the public, and this is one of the reasons I do believe that it's always been an overdrive of everything CO2, everything CO2, because if you understand it's a cycle, you're going to behave a little differently the way you spend your money, save your money, and invest your money moving into the future over these next 5 to 7 years. You're going to be using that money to get ready. And as these things are progressing so quickly and governments and the media just does not want to discuss it, I'm not a fan of extinction level events either, which means we need to get into high gear to figure out how we're going to grow our food, what the natural systems can produce outside. I'm not a fan of extinction level events. Let's get into a global Manhattan project here for indoor vertical agriculture. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. Let me know how you're preparing in the comment box below, and let's start the conversations right here, right now.